Must be on guard against black swans and fend off grey rhinos, said Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday. What exactly did he mean? And the U.S. Justice Department says it will go ahead and request the extradition from Canada of a Huawei executive by the name of Meng Wanzhou. What consequences can we expect next? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. Faced with a complicated international landscape and confronted with the tasks of promoting reform and development while maintaining stability, Chinese President Xi Jinping warned senior officials to keep high vigilance against unexpected black swans and grey rhino events in order to forestall and defuse major risks. He said these on Monday while addressing the opening ceremony of a study session at the party school of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. He analyzed and shared specific requirements on handling risks in 7 areas, including politics, ideology, economy, and science and technology. What black swan and grey rhino events is he referring to? Why has preventing major risks become such a priority at this moment? Is China concerned of the so-called color revolution, as some Western media have claimed? Joining me for the discussion in the Beijing studio are Xu Qinduo, Senior Fellow of Pangoal Institution, and Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, and from Hong Kong, Robert Koepp, Director of the Economist Corporate Network. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. I understand black swan phenomenon or grey rhino phenomenon means specific things, especially in economic terms, and yet Professor Liu, as an economist, help us understand these terms, what exactly they mean, and what are some of the examples that President Xi could be having in his mind?
Well, both black swan and grey rhino are disruptive forces for the operation of the economy and many other social management events. So the black swan is something that can pop up in a routine operation, whereas the grey rhino can be something very unpredictable and come up with a catastrophic result over the current operation. So now what he's referring is that, okay, will the bubble be busted, because people talk about the heavy debt issues going on within China, and also how can we really maintain the deleveraging process, or so that we can really maintain the economic on a stable track, whereas there can be ample supply of financial resources for the transformation of economy. And over the routine issues, people can be used to some things that really lead to the wrong direction, but can they really be accumulated, for example, like the housing prices, etc.
Okay, Qinduo, from a social perspective, what do you think are some of the risks that he could be talking about? Because black swans and grey rhinos may not just be economic issues, it could also be social problems.
Well, any of these economic issues, like a property market bubble, if there's a burst, could become a social issue. That's why the Chinese government is very much obsessed with the social stability. Could coming from other areas, like especially the financial markets or the economic area.
What kind of special circumstances we're looking at now that the internet is so powerful? How much of a risk has that compounded the situation?
That's mostly like an ideological field, I would say. For in the anchor part, we talked about the color revolution, so-called like Arab Spring. In the Western developed countries, some people at least, they are looking forward to probably a color revolution in China, a change of government, so-called introduction of a Western-style democracy in China. But look, China has a different political system, different economic system, but that has been running very well with China over the past 40 years, making China to become the second largest economy. There's no reason probably to do any radical change at that. So this is really about the young minds, of the Chinese young generation, because most of the information flow from the internet.
Yeah. Let me go to Robert in Hong Kong. Robert, at this particular moment, we're looking at the Chinese economy still growing very fast, 6.6%, and China's GDP last year also reached a record high, and yet some Western commentators have, as they have been saying over the past few decades, China's economy is, not doing fine, is finally, landing, whether hard landing, soft landing. Do you think there is a timing issue here that President Xi is warning of these risks at this moment, or do you think the timing has been overinterpreted?
Well, I think the timing is actually along the lines of not just, I would argue, Western observers, but I think even within China there's a sense that things are slowing down. I don't think it's catastrophic, so you do hear that in media, and you would be fair to say Western media probably overemphasizes it, but markets too. We've seen a huge drop in global stock markets and China's stock market over concerns about the slowing growth rate. So it does seem to coincide with that in the potential repercussions of a slowing economy. Like the earlier comments mentioned, the economy and society interrelate. So if property prices, for example, drop and people are not happy and they protest, that creates a source of social instability. So I think the timing relates to that. And like the previous comment also being made about youth maybe taking a different, more globalized view of how China should be, that seems to be of concern to the party.
Yeah. Professor Liu Baocheng here, do you think the slowing down of the Chinese economy is indeed giving extra emergence to the issue that President Xi is talking about? Is that why he is coming out to talk about these things?
I do not think so. As the second largest economy with 90 trillion RMB in value, any additional growth based on 6.6, it's a really big number. So if you look at Europe, if you look at America, so we are doing a great job, at least in terms of these big fundamentals: GDP growth rate, employment rate, and also the CPI. So that's being said, I think, yes, President Xi is really alerting the country that we do not only see the rosy picture, but also there are undercurrent pitfalls that are lying ahead. Yeah. So therefore, this is really a reminder to all the Chinese nation, and particularly those politicians and rural managers, that how we can really face certain challenges.
Is President Xi reminding people of the need to prevent against color revolutions, as some Western journalists
Well,
say?
not necessarily specifically a color revolution. I mean, the Western nations are looking at, of course, promoting color revolution in many other countries too over the past decades. I mean, this has been consistent for China to talk about political and ideology, this area, stability. But I think President Xi, the timing also is this relationship between China and the United States. They are talking about trade deal, but some tension goes beyond trade deal. So that's very complicated, and then people are not that optimistic, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert, what's your take from Hong Kong to the same question?
Well, I mean, in terms of the points being made that it's not merely an internal situation, there are external factors. The trade war certainly underscores it. I don't hear much myself about Western media or observers arguing for a color revolution in China. I think that ship has kind of sailed, in the sense that we saw that before the demise of the Soviet Union, and then what happened in Eastern Europe, and then, yes, indeed, with the Arab Spring. But there have also been mixed results as a consequence, because those weren't smoothly handled transitions. So I'm not aware of any real advocacy for a color revolution, but there is definitely, on the economic front, a huge push for China to engage in what's known as reciprocal trading relations, and that's coming not only from the presidency of U.S. presidency of Donald Trump, but the EU and other trading partners. And it's because China has taken an unbalanced approach to trade.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to highlight one of the things that President Xi said, and very likely people are going to have doubts or questions about it, where he says that in order to ensure political stability, ideological stability, economic development. He said China must strengthen the advantage of the mainstream public opinion. And this question also for my guests here in the studio. China must strengthen the advantage of the mainstream public opinion, guide public opinion with greater effectiveness, speed up the construction of a comprehensive governance system of the Internet, and govern the Internet by law. Professor Liu, how do you look at such importance that he is putting on this area?
I think it's reflecting a sort of dilemma we're facing. On one hand, if we move to an innovation-driven economy, we have to have access to information. But in the meantime, there are ideological consideration whether there's going to be a color. Actually, I think China is colorful enough. You know, how can you really, be colorless?
We're red.
Therefore, I think there's really excessive worry that exposure to Western media can really change people's mind. Actually, we all live in the West and now we still come back to love the country and love the humanity. So therefore, I think there should be a higher level of confidence for people that are particularly for the rising middle class, who are really very determined and committed to work with China and contribute to China's growth so that they can really benefit from it.
Yeah, really running out of time. Qinduo, your comment very quickly.
Let me add just one thing. If you read the Western media, especially the U.S. media, I would say, for example, Washington Post report of like Chinese made the car, the metro car in Washington D.C. They say, oh, that could be used to monitor the U.S. citizens, and also a very popular app, short video app.
They're
collecting data.
And ideology.
There's like a campaign to demonize China, to depict China as another like evil empire, like a former Soviet Union. I think this is kind of like ideological war against China.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks to my three guests. Unfortunately, time is very limited. Xu Qinduo, Senior Fellow of the Pangoal Institution, Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, and Robert Koepp, Director of the Economist Corporate Network.